Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. This is Channel Vision editor Gerald Baldino here, and today we're very excited to feature nexVortex and ADTRAN. Over the next hour, we'll be discussing migrating customers to SIP without sacrificing voice quality or performance, and how this can be accomplished using managed SIP. Joining us today is Mike Nowak, Vice President of Sales at nexVortex, and Jess Zelaya, who is National Sales Manager at ADTRAN. Please stay tuned for a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can submit them through the Q&A portal located at the bottom of the Zoom platform. At this point, I'd like to turn the webinar over to Mike and Jess to begin.
Thank you, Gerald. Appreciate the introduction, and thank you for all that are joining us today. Today's webinar is about confidently migrating to SIP trunking services. But I'd also challenge those that are listening in today to look at some underlying themes, some things that you can utilize this technology for to address some emergent business needs. And you'll find out with the capabilities that we put here today, it goes way farther beyond than just SIP trunking services. My name is Mike Nowak, and I'll be one of your discussion leaders here today. My background is I've been with nexVortex for 10 plus years and doing SIP trunking for 13 years. I've always been in the channel sales, and I've always been working with business partners to build out solutions. One of those business partners that we really appreciate is ADTRAN. ADTRAN has become a strategic partner for our mSIP service and for us to deliver some of the capabilities that are unique to mSIP. Jess, how about I hand it over to you for a few seconds here, and you tell us a little about your story and ADTRAN.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jess Zelaya. I'm the National Sales Manager for ADTRAN. I'm located down in South Florida. I'm going on my 5th year with ADTRAN and my 10th year in the business, and I'm really proud that nexVortex has certified ADTRAN as their go-to gateway for their mSIP offering. I mean, together we've simplified the process and made sure that it's seamless for customers. So really happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Mike. So a little bit about ADTRAN. We are located in Huntsville, Alabama. We actually have our support located in Huntsville, so US-based, and we also do our a lot of our manufacturing and our assembly, including the TA900 product that you're going to learn about today. So you can feel really proud that this is an American-built product. ADTRAN has over 700 patents. It's actually really cool. If you go into ADTRAN and take a tour, we have a wall of patents, and we actually empower and help our employees to think of new ideas, and then we put some weight behind it and actually put the patents in their name. And then the key differentiator, this is something pretty cool. We offer real-time quality of service metrics. So you can be, rest assured that we're looking out for every call that's happening and making sure that, you're supported and that the call quality is top of the line.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Jess. We definitely appreciate that. And you'll be hearing a little bit more about how we utilize those call quality metrics as part of the mSIP solution. So the agenda that we'll cover today is we'll get into the mSIP value proposition. And I hope, again, you see this more than just a product pitch, a way that you can utilize this technology to address emerging business needs beyond simply connecting to phone systems. You'll learn about how the ADTRAN, and we leverage those capabilities in the solution. And then importantly, the very end here, we're going to cover some of the sales process and sales engineering capabilities that we have. These larger networks for hospitals and government applications can be very complex, and we want to make sure you know that process and the resources there to help you. So why don't we begin our journey, and we'll do the introduction. So again, on the nexVortex side, I've been with the company for quite a while and very proud to see its growth. A lot of the growth, I would say, is attributed to the fact that we have an excellent channel. Our channel partners, I think, are attracted to the integrity of the program, but also the ability to execute we've done over the years. A lot of the secret sauce that we have comes from the heritage that we've always been a SIP trunking provider. We've started out as a SIP trunking provider, and we built, own, and operate call processing, billing, and portal tools. And those capabilities allow us to do a much more comprehensive solution set than simply connecting voice calls to PBXs. One of the things that we find in today's world is we're utilizing this capability to share resources as folks migrate to different collaboration platforms. So whether on Mitel Connect today, or they're going to move to Microsoft Teams tomorrow, or they're considering a move to UCaaS, nexVortex has built out a strategic portfolio to allow customers to migrate, and better yet, take advantage of some of the capabilities they need today for cost savings, 911 compliance, disaster recovery, when they make up their mind what the future holds. And so you'll find that this underlying capability of a portable service that's interoperable across multiple platforms is a very powerful solution set that's appealing today and beyond. And we'll cover more of that here in just a few minutes. And again, future-proof. That's the way I like to think of the way we're positioned. The core segment for mSIP, there's definitely a core profile customer that comes and seeks us. Hospitals and healthcare are number one, and become number one, especially because of the feature set they crave that mSIP has. That same feature set is also highly desired by the other vertical markets you see here. Anyone that really has multiple PBX systems and multiple locations and is quality driven and want to take that extra step to vet out the SIP trunking provider is positioned very well to be a nexVortex customer. So if you call on any of these entities, I hope some of the stuff here you see will translate over to solving some of their business problems. So why don't we get into the framework here of how this is done in this checklist that our customers have. So in the mSIP value proposition, the first piece of the framework has to be interoperability with the phone system. One of the first questions we will ask is, what is the system that's being deployed or being considered to be deployed? Based on that, there may be a different configuration. Because we own, operate, and develop on our side, we've been sought out by a number of OEMs to partner with, to test with. We've also reached out to them to formally certify. So you'll find a deep know-how on everything from Microsoft Teams connectivity to connectivity with various different PBX systems. The ADTRAN SBCs are also critical in the interop piece. We use those for systems like My Voice Connect for Mitel, also PRI handoffs for folks that have already invested in PRI cards, or maybe on an older, outdated system. They want to take advantage of the SIP components. Okay. SD-WAN, as you can imagine, is always going to be brought up when someone is doing a multiple location environment. And as nexVortex is concerned, call quality is essential and interoperability is essential. So we knew that this was coming, and we started to invest in various different interop test points with different SD-WAN providers. With real-time protocol, we have to ensure that if there's any pops or other different ways the traffic is routed, that we have to get it to our ingress points as cleanly as possible. So we found it very advantageous to test with a variety of these market leaders, including ADTRAN, to ensure that when you're putting in one of these SD-WAN networks, that it's going to work. And so be prepared as you engage nexVortex sales resources. They'll always ask you, beyond the interop of the PBX, what kind of SD-WAN provider you're using. Getting into the value proposition a bit deeper, let's talk about money and cost savings. One of the reasons that it's an easy decision to use mSIP is the cost savings factor you get from sharing resources. So the diagram you see is what we see commonly in a hospital environment or a county government. You may have a publisher and multiple subscribers or multiple Mitel Avaya systems, et cetera. And we find them connected to legacy-based SIP trunking service, where folks have definitive designated channels for each of those platforms. And they're buying additional trunk resources for failover scenarios or other systems. And what we find is that these resources are not easily shared among sites. And when you find yourself with a situation where you need to have a remote workforce, how do you easily address 911 services for these teleworkers? And if you have a disaster recovery scenario, how do you fail over resources? And so this is a big problem, and it's keeping folks up at night, especially those that have multiple systems. What our business partners do here at nexVortex is they recommend the trunk sharing capabilities we have from our SIP trunks. And those SIP trunks can dynamically allocate by default to both Mitel systems, or your Mitel and Cisco system, or your system with a ADTRAN 908E with a PRI handoff to another system that you've inherited or acquired. So this trunk sharing capability allows you to reduce the amount of SIP trunks that you need to buy. And we can do that because of the architecture of our billing platform and call processing. So one of the big questions we'll always ask is, how many call paths do you really need for all of those systems? Let's get away from designated trunk lines from an older technology. Then we get into the case with all these systems. How do we handle disaster recovery of a down location, power failure, misconfiguration? And so the years of history we've had here, we built into the SIP messaging an auto-detecting disaster recovery capability. So this is actually embedded into the SIP messaging. This isn't monitoring for IP traffic. So as commands go back and forth between nexVortex call processing and their Cisco call manager, in real time, we can detect failures, whether it's a power failure, whether it's a situation where it's misconfigured. In real time, you can have your preset rules to failover to other IP of other circuits you have on site, to other phone systems that you have in different geographies. You can have up to 3 failover rules for any different DID or toll-free number. And the portal that all of our customers get includes this. And here's a quick snapshot. Now, what this demonstrates is there's a DID number, a 616 number. Its rule for failover, if it can't reach the primary system, to fail over to an IP address as its first alternate route. The rule set is, if that cannot be reached because it's misconfigured or not available as well, fail over to a second rule in real time. And we can do that again because of the SIP messaging commands. That second rule set, in this case, we demonstrate an actual PSTN line to show that you can do that. If that line was cut and we got an SS7 fail code or a busy signal, it can fail off that as well. In this case, we show it goes to a cell phone. Most of our hospital networks will fail from IP address to IP address to IP address for these different call processing PBX systems they have. But again, you can do any combination you want whenever you want. And the beauty of this is you can actually do this before any of your numbers port, preset in the portal, and change it in real time if you decide. So this is a powerful tool our customers really appreciate, and it's always free for all of our customers. And the good news too is our business partners and sub-agents, you have access to our sub-agent portal. And if you're helping your customers with implementation, you can have access to the exact same capabilities yourself. In the conversation, we will always want to talk about 911 services, especially in multi-site deployments. It's going to be very important to know, do you have Mitel Revolution running or Cisco Emergency Responder? If you're running those, how are we going to, do you have a 911 plan in place? We find many really appreciate the 911 capabilities built in for our customers. Some of those things that folks love is it's a visual tool. It allows you to list every address that you have across your entire environment down to the classroom level or portion of your building. And that allows you to address Kerry's Law and Ray Baum compliance for the zoning requirements, especially at the state level. So the visual tool that the customer and our business partners have is excellent. If you need to make a change, you can do so in the portal. Furthermore, you can drag over as many ELIN numbers as you want and move them in and out. And the cost that they pay is just the location. So you don't have to pay for all those different ELINs. So that makes the rollout process of a campus environment very easy to do. The other thing that we highly encourage all of our customers and business partners to do is test the 911 service the right way. We have test codes that you can use from any of the phones that can pathway out to a nexVortex SIP trunk through their PBX, which will play back the address and suite or classroom level back to them. So it's an important part of the process. And again, we always provide this in our portal functionality, whether it's managed SIP or nexVortex standard SIP. When we get into the confidence side of the house, the ability for someone to be confident to make a decision to run over the top SIP trunking service, we always run into similar concerns. How do you address packet loss, jitter? What about finger pointing? And these are things that really cause folks to hesitate. And that was the foundation of what we wanted to build nexVortex mSIP on starting in 2014. And you'll see how we did it here in the next couple slides. The first piece of it was we needed to have a geographic dispersed network that was set up as active-active failover. We needed those service nodes to be built with cloud-based SBCs, and we built those internally ourselves in conjunction with our call processing, billing, and portal tools. Those service nodes being geographically redundant was part of it. The next piece of it is to deliver the high call quality from those to the PSTN. We needed to put an MPLS core in behind it. And so we did that. And then we layered in multiple different ISP connections all over the country. And these different ISP connections were powerful ingress-egress points for our customers that had different types of ISPs. And what it did is basically provided an avenue of almost like on-net calling. And when we started to do our research and our call quality scoring against folks that are running over the top general internet versus one of the peering connections, we found the call quality scores went through the roof. We found that the latency, packet loss, and jitter were exceptional. And it scored across all the different peering connections. So we continued to add in ISP providers. The other thing we do is when we do our setup, we look at the optimized path for our customer to get in, especially if they're not using one of the peering relationships we have. And so with the MPLS core, custom call processing, custom cloud-based SBCs, and the peering, we can provide a lot of confidence for customers to get in and out of the PSTN over the top, over multiple different connections. Now, the next piece of this is how to anchor everything. And so we wanted to anchor and create a troubleshooting point inside the customer's walls. And as in our process, we started to evaluate all kinds of different vendors. And we found some very unique traits about ADTRAN. Plus, the engineering access they had really felt like a great marriage together. Some of the things that we use with our ADTRAN units on premise, again, the PRI handoff is nice, but to be able to capture their published message in real time and incorporate that into our call quality scores across the entire call journey creates just an awesome solution. And it's one of the winners for definitive troubleshooting that we do at nexVortex. Again, there's a lot of things we can do with this. Why don't I segue over to you, Jess, and you can tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, we're really happy to be a piece of the magic of the mSIP solution. Our gateway connects analog, SIP, and PRI together to maintain high call quality. And I mean, these are carrier class routers. So like Mike said, it's a stateful inspection, firewall, VPN capabilities, support for multiple internet connections, built-in failover in case of an outage, and built-in survivability. So in the event of an emergency, you can still make a call out. These gateways provide voice quality monitoring, advanced troubleshooting. So what does that mean to you? SIP traces, debugging in real time to find the issue and correct it. And this allows nexVortex to solve problems very quickly. At the end of this, during our Q&A, I'm also going to introduce Will Stetson, who is my senior sales engineer out of Dallas, Texas. He's been with ADTRAN for 12 years. He likes to say he started in middle school, but I'm not sure. But if you have any technical questions or you need any information, you have him as a resource, just like I have him as a resource. And we're very proud of the partnership that we've built with nexVortex. Thank you. So something about where we're going. So a lot of, people like to know, hey, what's going on with ADTRAN? What's the latest and greatest? I would say the coolest thing we've done is we launched our SD-WAN in February and officially started up our first new customer this month. And we're also doing a TA900 refresh. So we like to keep the equipment relevant and current, and that will all transfer over to nexVortex, which means it transfers over to you. So you can, feel confident in knowing you have the most relevant, active piece of equipment out there to make sure that your network is the best.
Thank you, Jess. And speaking of that, in terms of SD-WAN, although nexVortex specializes on SIP traffic, going back and forth between our various different systems that we support, a lot of folks would think it's SD-WAN. And in a sense, we would argue it really looks like SD-WAN, especially with our POP-based model. We don't specialize in site-to-site traffic, and that's where you may use an SD-WAN from ADTRAN for that. One of the capabilities that we do use that is similar to SD-WAN is the Dual WAN failover capabilities. And this is a very common design for our customers, where our sales agents will recommend that they have two separate internet connections or multiple, and we'll pre-build it in our design so that they can either load balance or failover if one of the circuits goes down. So popular configuration for customers, utilizing all this with more of a high availability design to keep everything up, and that in conjunction with our disaster recovery module is definitely a powerful value add. Now, using the ADTRAN service on site, the on-premise SBC that we provide, in conjunction with the cloud-based SBCs that we've built for this and our call processing monitoring that we do, we're able to use our technology to offer something really special. And this is what we call our nexVortex Service Monitor, NVSM. It was built because we had the capabilities in-house. This isn't bolt-on type products here. And the use of the ADTRAN published message from those that we provide, we're able to string together call quality scores from the entire process of the call. And there's multiple different points that you measure, from the ADTRAN inside the customer's walls or in their data center to the point where it hits the nexVortex cloud-based SBCs to the point where it hits the nexVortex core network. And we string all those together and measure them and score them. And what we display to our business partners and customers is inside their portal, let me back up here, sorry, is a variety of different reports that they can access in real time. One of those reports that's very neat is that if you ever wanted to look at how every single call is performing, you can scroll over it and it will show you the 6 different points that we're measuring. So that's the upload and download portion of calls. They can actually take different paths. And so when you string this all together, we can give you a real definitive score all the way to the service provider. And that's just something that you just don't see with a traditional SD-WAN, especially if it's not a POP-based SD-WAN provider. So that definitive troubleshooting capability, I would argue, is finger pointing. And so when someone has an issue, they could go in the portal and see what portion of the call was broke, or they call into our NOC. Many times we find our customers really think this is cool, but they don't always use it. They call into the nexVortex NOC in DC, and we pull this up for them, and we can see things to help them pinpoint where the issue is. So this is a very powerful tool. The other thing that goes with it is all of our ADTRAN systems are armed and alarmed. So if someone takes one down or it disappears, it automatically opens a trouble ticket for nexVortex for us to call the folks of record for that. And that really helps. So it's a very high quality touch and just delivers that confidence over the top. And just one last thing on this, by stringing this together, sometimes we have to make adjustments in the nexVortex network. Maybe the pathway into the Dallas service node needs to be redirected through another ISP provider, or maybe it needs to be redirected to a completely different service node. And these tools help us do that proactive work on the back end that folks would really not notice. So how do you deploy this? You want to get access from your customer prem environment to the cloud-based network, and there's different options you can do here. One of the options that you can do is you can use any ISP that you want. You have to have certain call quality measurables, such as latency, packet loss, and jitter under control. You also have to have enough upload and download speed for your calls. That's important to address with any provider, but you can use any ISP that you want that abides by some of those basic standards. It's better from a scoring perspective if you can use an ISP peering relationship we have, such as AT&T or Cogent or Verizon. If you're in the Midwest, US Signal is a strong provider. But there's a variety of them. If you're going to run voice services over Comcast, we definitely would prefer that it's peered in back with us. And that gives you the low latency transmissions and the best call quality experience you're going to have. And so again, you can mix and match these at different locations. The mSIP service doesn't matter. We'll factor that into the design. For those that want it more nailed down, folks can order nexVortex circuits. The circuits we provide are powered by AT&T. We are a platinum AT&T provider. From a wholesale perspective, the circuits that we provide will have class of service on them. They will be internet access with provided IP addresses, but they will have class of service into our AT&T network. And so you can do a variety or hybrid scenarios. Okay. From an implementation perspective, once we know the design, we assign a project coordinator. Our project coordinators are based out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, at our sales operations headquarters. Those folks will understand what our business partners' intentions are for the project, if there's new systems or not coming in. Usually our customers are heavily involved pre-sales with our business partners at that point. Network design is approved, timelines. We want to make sure we don't have any challenges with start of service expectations, et cetera. That project coordinator has a key component that they work towards, and that is account health. Their goal is to help make sure that account goes in correctly, ported correctly, 911 setup, and they will always be offering to help train on the portals. They'll be through the entire process to the end of the rollout. So that's our process, and commonly we're configuring design work for our ADTRAN SBCs. Pre-sales, our channel managers will commonly deploy a service guide that asks our business partner or customer to pick what design they like. They will have to pick one of the configurations designs. And since we've been doing this, I haven't found a situation where folks don't like at least one of the designs that we deploy. I think they're very friendly and address security and everything else. But this is part of the pre-sales process because we are deploying a managed ADTRAN with our mSIP service. From a pricing perspective, high level, mSIP service historically does deploy in government accounts. It deploys in universities and K through 12 and hospitals, et cetera, which are usually multiple locations and so forth. The product is extremely scalable. They could order 100 trunk lines or 110 trunk lines or 1,000 trunk lines. So the scalability is definitely there. Historically, folks will start off with at least 23 trunk lines that they're replacing. We do have a kit that we do bring all those capabilities down to the very small business which is a 12-channel kit. And those are very popular. So you can take advantage of all this technology for a very reasonable price down to a small customer. But again, a lot of the designs that we do are customized. They're usually 23 channels or more in varieties of trunk pool designs and a variety of PBXs sharing those resources. And so asking for an mSIP quote, you're usually going to get several questions and an offer, can we help you in the process? So why don't we talk about that process real quick so you know how to get started if you run into a project you want to team up with us on. So the sales process, first and foremost, we do very well in the sectors we've discussed. In the components here you see on the screen are usually the hot buttons. We usually want to make sure that we're in alignment with the customer's trying to do high level initially, and especially that PBX interoperability component, and make sure we understand the customer's desires. We know there's a lot of challenges with traditional services, legacy SIP trunking providers, over-the-top providers, challenges that folks are facing today, scalability, the 911 support for remote workforce, the high cost of the dedicated circuits all over the place, turnover in legacy based providers as their business is challenged, disaster recovery capabilities and service visibility, definitely. From the finance side of the house, there's a lot of questions today about platform. What platform should we be using tomorrow? Should it be Microsoft Teams? Should it be UCaaS? What investments should we be making? And you find that there's a lot of uncertainty in the buyer circles. And the capabilities that nexVortex brings to the table for these folks is we check all these boxes off for them, plus give them that flexibility. If they want to change in the future, they can with proven interoperability and a proven pathway. And that is a very important part of the discussion that seems to be coming up every day in these discussions with our business partners and customers. Take advantage of this technology today, but you leave the door open for you to make some changes in using the same core infrastructure as you move. In the process, again, asking nexVortex for a quote. We're thrilled to try to make it as easy as possible, but we do want to ask some questions to make sure that we get it right. Example, if you come to nexVortex and you're putting in a My Voice Connect, everyone at nexVortex knows when you do a My Voice Connect for Mitel, we have to put an ADTRAN unit in for interoperability. So those are some things we want to get right to make sure it's priced right and it works right. In terms of the design, a lot of times we're delivering an executive proposal to our customers with a needs analysis, Visio diagrams. RFPs, we actually enjoy doing RFPs. And I think because we can not only address many of the things that folks need, we can set the bar on some of those things. The multiple step sales process, we usually are joined at the hip at our business partners as we're rolling these out. These aren't usually one call closes. So these are things that we're prepared to do. And when you're ready to chat with us, this is kind of the experience that you're going to get. So where do you go for help and how do you get started? If you don't know, or if you're new to nexVortex, you can always ask your master agent. We work with a lot of different master agents. The other thing is you can contact partners at nexVortex and ask for a chat. So those are things that you can do to get started if you're new to us. If you're already working with us, we definitely want to make sure you're aware of the expanded resources we have and the current positioning that we do. So that being said, guys, I really appreciated the time that we had together today. And I think, Gerald, I'll turn it over to you and Jess to see if there's anything else that you'd like to end with in Q&A.
That sounds great. Thank you, Mike and Jess. I think we can jump into the Q&A session here. We have a couple that we want to get through. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, there's still plenty of time to submit them through the Q&A portal. So one question that came up during the presentation here is, Are there any restrictions on where nexVortex can port over phone numbers?
That's a good question. We have worked very hard to have an extensive footprint, including creating some custom arrangements, like in the state of Maine, for example, to port numbers in rural markets, rural states. What I find is that if there's an ILAC, an independent phone company there, it can be difficult. So when you run into those situations, it is best to just engage the channel manager, and they usually will ask you anyway, part of the process, to verify the phone numbers. We are heavily, if you look at the nexVortex portfolio, many of our customers are in the United States and Canada. When you get outside of the United States and Canada, 911 has different regulations than portability does. But in the United States, I would say if it's rural market or it's an independent, doesn't mean we can't do it. Let's check up front.
Okay. Another question that came up here is, does nexVortex mSIP work with virtual PBX systems?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, we're seeing a lot more virtual PBX systems, and in some cases, it's a design where there's on-premise and virtual. We've seen that, seem to see that more and more often. And definitely, when you do a virtual system, and if we can't place an ADTRAN system with it, you can get a number of the benefits you've seen today. One of the things that you will not get is call quality scoring from the ADTRAN unit. So we always want to brief folks that when they're doing hybrid scenarios or virtual systems, that you can definitely use the mSIP services, but the ADTRAN is an important part of that, and it's not there, so you miss out on that leg of the call scores.
Okay, one question that that attendees seem to be having here regards fax. Wondering if you could talk a little bit about how nexVortex addresses fax. One question here is that, suppose you have a customer that's looking to move from NV250 and NV fax to mSIP. Could you maybe explain this process?
Yeah. NV250 is a very popular nexVortex service plan that is it's just not an mSIP plan with it's not managed. So you could easily move to nexVortex mSIP. nexVortex years ago built out T38 and G711 pass-through support, and I think we're good at it. But we're very conservative on this, so we tell everyone up front we should have a fax conversation. It's unbelievable how many folks are still doing fax. It's still running, but we have to brief them that just within like an NV250 plan or mSIP, there is no guarantees. I think you'll be greeted with a smile when you call into our NOC. We have some great troubleshooting capabilities, but we do not guarantee any fax throughput because of the conversion process. So most folks, I find, either have a strategy where they may keep some backup services for their fax, or they'll use the nexVortex electronic fax, which can be pure electronic fax or analog handoff to legacy systems. But it's a conversation we should have.
Mm-hmm. Another fax-related question here is for the Mitel Connect premise solution. The nexVortex ADTRAN unit needed for mSIP alleviates the need for their proprietary separator. Do you agree with this statement?
Yeah, and I have seen a following of folks that must be talking about that, because what it does is, instead of having to do a capital expense for a customer to buy a separator, they're able to have it all in one service plan, managed by nexVortex, packaged in legacy ShoreTel and MyVoice Connect. Really need that interoperability capability from either an Migrate separator or an ADTRAN, and so our packaging of that and our ability to pay our business partners even on that rental portion of that is very attractive. and it addresses that interoperability. So I appreciate the question, but there's definitely a lot of that My Voice Connect pairing with our ADTRAN SBCs.
One question that just came up here: can you sell just the SBC with another SIP provider? Example use case would be the ILEC numbers that NV cannot port.
That's a good question. In terms of those situations, our business partners would very well use something different, and they wouldn't come to nexVortex for that. They'd come to it for us as a managed kit. And if they said, I just want to buy the ADTRAN from you, we would refer to Jess's network and say, what's a good distributor to go to for those? But from us, you're always going to see it where our gameplay is it's packaged and managed.
Gotcha. Okay. Another question for you here: what master agents do you work through?
Goodness, I think with the network we've built, I think, Gerald, I think take your pick. Our strategy early on was to team up with master agents. So we have direct agreements with, I think pretty much all the big ones. Plus, you can source us through the Agent Alliance and TSX, et cetera. So, if I have found sometimes master agents, you just have to ask them to source us if maybe, especially if it's a smaller master agent, but it's definitely a great way to go. And I'd be surprised if you have a master agent relationship that can't source us either through their own agreement or through one of the alliance members.
Okay. Any closing thoughts, I guess, on for our attendees here, and anything we haven't covered that you really want to drive home?
I always have something to say. Gerald, how about I turn the floor to you, Jess, first?
Sure. I thought this was very informative. I learned a lot of things about mSIP and about how you use ADTRAN that I can take and learn and try to build the customer base. So I appreciate you asking us to come on the call. One thing I didn't really talk about was the support that ADTRAN offers, and I did want to touch on that. So nexVortex has access to myself, to my engineer Will, who's on the call now, and to 24/7 support that we offer right from Huntsville, Alabama. So that, deploying a service and having it work is very important, but also knowing that it's a service that we stand behind and that we support, and that knowing that nexVortex feels supported should make any potential customer or current customer feel very confident in their service. So with that, I just want to say thank you for having me, and turn it back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Jess. I would just say that there definitely is a lot of uncertainty out there. It's sometimes nice just to have an evaluation discussion on how you address some of these things that folks need, especially with remote workforce or changing platforms. And we just love it. We spend a lot of time on that, on the tech side of it, but to solve business problems with our partners is just awesome. So I think you're going to find some enthusiasm, and if you ever want to run something by us, we think it's fun. We'd love to be a part of it, and hopefully we can talk soon.
Okay, I think that should wrap up today's webinar. Big thank you to Mike and Jess, to everyone over at nexVortex and ADTRAN, and of course to all of you for attending today's event. Just a reminder, to access this webinar on demand, please head over to channelvisionmag.com/webinars. And thanks, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe, everyone.